As calls for a no-fly zone over Libya are getting louder, Paris makes a move, becoming the first nation to recognize the rebel council as Libya's only legitimate representatives. And France is urging other countries to follow suit. Has Gaddafi lost the diplomatic battle? Will a new government rise in the east of Libya? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. Good to have you with us. I'm Divya Gopalan. Diplomatic and political developments are now taking place that might shift the battle for Libya. France has become the first European country to recognize the Libyan rebel leadership, the National Libyan Council, as the country's legitimate government. Now, the step was announced in Paris by the office of the French President Nicolas Sarkozy, a day after European members of Parliament tried to convince the entire EU to recognize the rebels. But other members of the EU have said that they need to know more about the opposition's political leadership and agenda, and that they want to work together with the Arab League before taking steps to recognize them. But already, Portugal has cut ties with Gaddafi government, and leaders around the world are being asked to take a stand. So let's take a look at who's in the council. The National Libyan Council was set up by the opposition groups on February 27th in the eastern city of Benghazi under the leadership of the former Justice Minister Mustafa Abdel Jalil. It includes 31 representatives from most of the regions in Libya. A few days after formation, the council declared itself as the country's only legitimate representative, describing itself as the face of the revolution. The council says its main missions are to free all areas still under Gaddafi's rule and represent the country internationally, draft a constitution, then hold elections. Well, to discuss our topic with our three guests, in Illinois we have Francis Boyle. He's a professor of international law at the University of Illinois. Francis Boyle was a lawyer for Bosnia and Herzegovina during the war in Bosnia and was able to help secure a NATO-endorsed no-fly zone over the country. In London, Juma El-Gamati, a Libyan writer and political activist. And in Toronto, Andrew McGregor, he's a senior editor of the Global Terrorism Analysis Programme, a specialist on North Africa for Jamestown Foundation. Gentlemen, welcome to the programme. If I may first start with Francis Boyle. Mr. Boyle, can you tell us what it means for Libya to have France recognize this rebel council and what kind of an effect this could lead to?
Well, clearly what France did here is illegal. It violates international law and the United Nations Charter prohibiting intervention in the domestic affairs of a state. So it indicates that France is going to get involved here in an attempt to overthrow the Gaddafi government.
Juma El-Gamati, do you agree what France is doing is illegal and that France is looking to overthrow the Gaddafi government?
No, I don't think so. I think the world community, the international legality, the Security Council, plus other bodies like the Arab League, the Islamic Conference, have all stated that Gaddafi no longer holds any legitimacy. When a ruler turns against his people and starts killing them en masse, when a ruler wages full-blooded war against his own people, you know, the semantics become irrelevant. There is a moral issue here. You know, Gaddafi is now being investigated by the World Crimes Court. He's been alerted by the Interpol, and the Security Council have banned travel on him. He does not represent his people anymore. So what has emerged is an interim council that has taken time to form from delegates from various cities and towns who form their own local councils. And this is a process that's much more representative, much more democratic, much more drawn from a consensus, and and it has been supported by Libyans widely within Libya, not just in the liberated regions and cities, but also in other cities in the West, where people came out and said, we support this council. This council is only interim, it's only temporary. It is there to fill the vacuum once Gaddafi leaves. We are confident that it's not whether Gaddafi will leave or not, it is when Gaddafi will leave. So Gaddafi will leave with his sons, probably, hopefully sooner than later, to stop the killing and the mayhem. And then somebody will have to fill the vacuum. Somebody will have to stabilize the country, secure it, and then pursue and then get away with get going with an interim period that will eventually lead to a permanent period, lead to a permanent position for Libya, a new discourse, a new political system, a proper government, constitutional, nationalist, democratic government that reflects the aspirations of the people and that allows the Libyan people to participate fully, politically, economically, and otherwise.
Right. That seems to be at the moment well into the future. But for now, Mr. Andrew McGregor, would you say that the international community should be recognizing or taking sides for this matter in what's happening in Libya?
I was very surprised by the French decision. I thought it was made in great haste, and I think it displays a struggle that's going on right now between a number of Western nations to try to exercise some kind of influence within the rebel camp, dealing with a council that not a great deal is known about, except that many of them were, until very recently, full Gaddafi loyalists. So we're seeing a struggle between France, Great Britain, the United States to try to get in there first and exercise the most influence over coming events.
How much is this, Jamal Gamati, do you think it's about other countries trying to exert influence in Libya rather than actually trying to help the people of Libya?
Well, I think outside countries, big countries like America, Britain, France, even China and Russia are entitled to be, keen to know what's going on and to be there. But what really drives this is the local dynamics. It's the local dynamics within Libya is what driving the whole thing. And the local dynamics are telling us that Gaddafi is now isolated. He's mainly in Tripoli, and he controls very few towns around Tripoli. He cannot even regain control of Zawiya, which is 40 kilometers, 25 miles west of Tripoli, and he's totally isolated. He is now condemned by the whole world for basically pursuing a genocide against his own people, and it's only a matter of time. So of course the outside countries are entitled to look forward, to look ahead. They want to be in a position where they will have good relationships with Libya of the future. Gaddafi is now part of the past. The future of Libya is going to be crafted and shaped by the Libyan people, and I think countries who now totally detach themselves from Gaddafi are very wise to do so. Also, it's a moral responsibility for countries to show sympathy, understanding, and condemn the killings and the genocide that's going on, and show that they are siding with the people. It's a moral position, and it's a legal position as well, and it's an astute political position. So I don't see any harm in that. As far as the influence is concerned, I don't think I don't think big countries can influence things in a big way. As I said, the interim council is driven by its own constituents. It's got its own Libyan polity that it has to address and respond to, and eventually no country can dictate who the members of the council will be and what is the composition and so on. That is really for the Libyan people to decide, and outside countries are going to have to respect this and deal with it. What I can tell you for sure, that what is emerging is a Libyan consensus that the composition of this council is a very broad spectrum. It's mainly nationalist, by the way, very much a nationalist driven force, and there are people who have been marginalized by Gaddafi, who have been kept away, who have been even the justice minister now, Mustafa Abdel Jalil, who has been only a minister for the last 3 years, has been vocal and critical of Gaddafi. So he's somebody who carries respect and carries consensus behind him. And these people, will look for the interest of Libya, as well as look for a very good mutual international balance and relationship with the outside world. You know, I think soon we will have a totally different discourse in Libya. This is what some Western analysts cannot understand.
Regardless of who comprises of this council, the survival of this council depends on what happens on the ground. And right now what's happening is a fight, a battlefield basically between Gaddafi's forces, the rebels' forces trying to gain land. And now the international community is watching very closely, and there's talk of a no-fly zone. Francis Boyle, you've been involved in the implementing of a no-fly zone before. Is this an option for Libya?
Well, certainly it would require authorization by the United Nations Security Council under Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter. And right now, Russia and France have indicated they're not prepared to go along with it. So if NATO were to do it by itself, this would be a clear-cut case of aggression against Libya. And as for the motivation of the great powers, I can't speak for the rest of them, but certainly all the United States government is concerned about here is re-stealing Libya's oil and re-establishing military bases in Libya, which the United States had before the Gaddafi revolution. And they've never forgiven Gaddafi for taking control of all the Libyan oil fields, nationalizing Libya's oil, throwing U.S. oil companies out, and then throwing the United States out of the Wheeless Air Force Base, which it used to control and dominate the southern Mediterranean. So certainly those are the motivations here by the United States. I am not questioning the motivations of the common ordinary people of Libya who want freedom. Although, as Mr. McGregor correctly pointed out, most of the leaders of this so-called rebel council are former Gaddafi apparatchiks. So it's very hard to take any of them seriously.
You shake your head there. Can you tell us why you're saying that this is not valid, Juma Al-Gamati, when you say that they are, most of the former people in this council are former Gaddafi people, and now they are in positions of power? Why should people actually believe them?
Actually, with the greatest respect to your guest, there are some obvious inaccuracies there. I mean, I know the 30 members of the council, although only about 8 or 9 of them have been announced. And I can tell you, yes, Mustafa Abdul Jalil is a next justice minister, but the rest of them, in fact, they are ex-political prisoners in Libya. They are very, very staunch opponent of the Gaddafi regime. They were marginalized. They were imprisoned for a long time. They are people who carry the respect of their local communities. It is, and I mean, I ask your guest to give me the names of the, apart from Mustafa Abdul Jalil, who else was an ex-minister? Abdel Fattah Yunus, the ex-interior minister, is not even probably involved in the council. He's taking care of re-establishing and rebuilding the Libyan army. So apart from Abdel Fattah Yunus, the ex-interior minister, and Mustafa Abdul Jalil, I ask him, who else is he talking about? In fact, the great majority are opponents of Gaddafi. They have been opponents of Gaddafi throughout the last 40 years. Some of them have been political. They are intellectuals. They are judges. They are human rights activists. I mean, take, for example, the lawyer Abdel Hafid Ghoga, who's the spokesman now. He has been a staunch critic of Gaddafi for so long, and he's well known as a human rights activist. Take although outside we have some ambassadors who very bravely, sort of sided with the people, but they are not members of the council. So, and also another thing, this idea about America trying to re-steal Libyan oil and re-establish the wheel space. I mean, for God's sake, for the last 8 years, America had a very good relationship with Gaddafi. Gaddafi has given everything to America. I heard it from American diplomats that whatever we asked of Gaddafi for the last 8 years, he gave us. He was a partner in the war, in the so-called war against terrorism. So what else did America had oil, they had interest, they had oil companies having priority, they had everything with them.
Gamati,
So
Mr. Al-Gamati, let me let Francis Boyle respond here. Can I get a response from you?
Well, yes. So I think Mr. Jalil, the Minister of Justice for Gaddafi, that speaks for itself. The Minister of Interior for Gaddafi, the secret police. He's running things too. I think that speaks for itself. Again, I'm not questioning I've been to Benghazi. I've lectured in Benghazi, and this is many years ago, but I'm not questioning the good faith of ordinary people in Benghazi who want democracy and freedom. But it seems to me this is being hijacked by the Gaddafi loyalists who want to stay in power. The Americans have never forgiven Gaddafi for taking back Libya's oil from the king, and that the Americans put in power and the U.S. oil companies have put in power. Second, the Zionists have never forgiven Gaddafi for the enormous support he has always given to the Palestinians. And right now, Zionists are in control of the Obama administration and the new U.S. news media. So this, as the neoconservatives here in the United States see, Libya has now become low-hanging fruit, that they can very easily go in there, depose Gaddafi, steal the Libyan oil, and control and dominate this oil, and reestablish a military base in the southern Mediterranean. When Israel exterminated 1,400 innocent Palestinians in Gaza, Obama did not say one word. I repeat, Obama did not say one word. Obama and his Zionists running his government could not care less about the Libyan people. And I think the Libyan people have to understand that, whatever they decide to do from this point on time. All they want is your oil, and they're happy to put ex-Gaddafi people like Jalil and the Minister of Interior back in power, only this time, instead of redistributing that oil wealth to you, they will privatize all your oil fields and steal as much oil as possible, and they will continue a dictatorship.
Okay, so there's varying opinion on what the motivations are for the international community to get involved. But if I could take it to Andrew McGregor, if there is some kind of no-fly zone, is this considered military intervention, and how far could it go? How much help could they give the National Council or the rebel fighters in this case, and how much will that escalate the fight against Gaddafi? Will this be full-out war?
Well, we've seen in the past quite often that no-fly zones tend to be the first stage in a larger intervention. And we would probably have a very good case for that here in Libya. A lot of people think that no-fly zones simply involve sending some planes up and deterring other planes from flying. But in almost every case, and we've seen this in Serbia and Iraq in the past, the first stage of setting up a no-fly zone is attacks on the air defense facilities of the country over which the zone is being established. So right away you're starting with a kind of military intervention. From there it's a bit of a slippery slope towards further intervention. Once you're involved with a no-fly zone, you're basically committing to one side of the conflict. At that point, other options become available to nations like the United States or Great Britain that are interested in having a hand in the final solution here within Libya, particularly in the way of covert activities, supplying arms to the rebel forces, supplying intelligence information, results of surveillance. And also there's a possibility for nations like the United States to use their ties within the regime. Musa Kusa, the foreign minister in particular, is the longtime head of intelligence within Libya and has very extensive ties with the CIA in the United States. And it was kind of interesting to see his name was actually left off the sanctions list of individuals that was released the other day. So there's a wide variety of military and quasi-military covert and non-covert actions available to the United States and some of the European countries. I'm not sure that Great Britain will be eager to have a repeat of their last engagement, which was rather embarrassing with the capture of an SAS MI6 team that had failed apparently to establish contacts within eastern Libya before they landed there. Other nations with extensive ties to Libya, such as Italy, will be doing their best, in fact, to stay out of the conflict in all ways, largely because of their colonial history with the country. They have no interest in further involvement in that sense.
Now, Jumal Gamati, as Andrew McGregor is saying, that what this could lead to, a no-fly zone and perhaps international intervention, could actually lead to international firepower, possibly international fighters on the ground. How open are Libyans to getting this kind of help and this kind of backing, to have perhaps the rest of the world step on their soil to fight?
Well, overwhelmingly, the Libyans have said, and there is a very, very strong consensus is this, that we will never accept or allow military intervention inside Libya. We will never accept foreign troops coming on Libyan soil. The Interim Council has said that. Libyans on the streets of Benghazi and other towns have said that. Libyans in the diaspora have said that. We are very clear about that. And, you know, I'm not a fan of conspiracy theory or living in the era of anti-imperialism and Cold War, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of American foreign policy as well. What we have here is we have a dynamics that's evolving in Libya, a revolution that followed the Tunisian revolution and the Egyptian revolution, which is a symptomatic of a population that have been oppressed for over 4 decades, and they are very eager and aspiring to have freedom and democracy, and that's what's happening. So the local dynamics will determine and shape the future. Now, foreign countries, Libya doesn't live on a different planet. Libya lives in this planet, so it will have to have relations with the rest of the world, including European countries who are very close along the Mediterranean, including Britain and America, which have had relationship with Libya in the past. But all this business about, you know, it's interesting that your guest from America never even alluded to the massacres and the killings of children and women and the bombardment from the air of residential areas, what's happening in, and the massacres in Zawiya. You know, all they talk about is this imperialist plot to come and take Libyans' oil and reestablish, as if we are children. We don't know what's going on. We cannot take care of ourselves, as if Libya actually lacks the intellectual and the human resource that will determine to actually, as I said, craft a very different discourse and a better future for Libya, based on national sovereignty, national independence, and also based on good, mutual, respectful relationships with the rest of the world.
Okay, so then let me put it to Francis Boyle. So starting with a no-fly zone, how easy will it be for the international community to extricate itself from Libya once they've started any kind of intervention?
Well, with respect to our previous speaker, of course, he's the one asking for U.S. military intervention by means of a no-fly zone. And as Mr. McGregor pointed out, and as even Secretary of Defense Gates said, this will be, excuse me, sir, I haven't interrupted you, that as Secretary of State Gates said, this will lead to a massive bombing campaign of Libya. So he and this council, this rebel council, they're the ones calling for the military intervention. Second, I believe, based on all the incidents back in the 1980s, when the Reagan administration criminally bombed Libya repeatedly, sent the Sixth Fleet over there to terrorize and intimidate, murdered 70 people in downtown Tripoli, wounded 240, and tried to murder the entire Gaddafi family. I believe the Colonel Gaddafi will fight back, and there will be a major battle going on here between the United States and the NATO states to control and dominate the Libyan oil fields. And again, that's what this is all about. That's what Iraq was all about. We've seen massacres in Yemen. Obama goes along with it. There were massacres in Bahrain. Obama went along with it. There were massacres in Egypt. Obama went along with it. He's gone along with the massacres in Ivory Coast. He didn't say one word about Israeli massacres of Palestinians. Why do you think all of a sudden he's worried about the fact that maybe 400 Libyans might have been killed by Gaddafi? It's because of all the oil. And that's what's at stake here. And then second, the Zionists, both in Israel and in the White House and in the United States, have never forgiven Gaddafi for all the support he has given to the Palestinians. So they want him out.
Gentlemen, it's been a very interesting discussion. It's a shame we've run out of time. It seems to have thrown up a lot more questions than answers, but thank you so much for joining us. We had Francis Boyle, Juma El-Gamati and Andrew McGregor. And all of you viewers, thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We, of course, welcome your comments and suggestions, so please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.